when you're down, and when you're down this end of your beach, you feel calm and you're able to rest and digest and breed and feed, as the neuroscientists call it. And when we float in the waters of life down this end of our beach, down this end of the beach, we eat appropriately, we sleep well. And down here, we can, oh no, I'll come back to that. So when we float in the waters of life, we feel refreshed and rejuvenated. Up the other end of our beach are the big waves, the surf, the breakers. And when we're up this end of our beach, we feel excited and passionate. And when we dive into the waters of life up here, we feel adventurous and we've got energy. And wherever we are on our beach, we're meant to flow from one end to the other. And wherever we are, we have access to all our cognition, our ability to hold concepts and use logic. We are able to be present with ourselves and aware of ourselves and others and our environment. We're able to feel and express our emotions appropriately, and we know that we are part of unconditional love. And we can find it in ourselves and we can find it in others and we can find it in the bigger world. We have energy to set goals and make plans and to achieve what we want. And we communicate effectively and all sorts of, life's wonderful here on the beach. This is where we all want to be. But like any beach, the weather can change. So up the back of our beach is a tall rock cliff. We've all got it. It looks different for everybody. And at the lowest level, around about chest height, is a broad rock platform. So the first time that weather changes, we go and we activate our resources and we scramble up onto that rock shelf. And then we activate whatever resources we need to deal with what's being thrown at us. And when that weather event is over, we're meant to come back down off that rock shelf and start releasing our resources we activated and go and sit at or in some rock pools where we can reflect on our own experience or the experience of others. And every time we do this, going up onto that rock shelf and coming back down, we learn and we heal and we grow. And we not only grow in ourselves, we grow our beach and our capacity, and we grow that unconditional love. So to me, being able to complete that is part of a spiritual practice as well, because it keeps us from getting so lost. Anyway, as I said, we've come out of thousands of years of survival. So our parents mostly didn't know how to get down off that rock shelf themselves. So they weren't able to teach us. So instead of coming down, we climbed up to the next level of rock shelf, which wasn't quite as broad and wasn't quite as comfortable, until eventually we're a third to a half the way up that cliff. And it's not real comfortable at all. Like we can see the beach is now a long way away and it's not feeling particularly great here on our cliff face. We're feeling uncomfortable physically, emotionally, and intellectually and spiritually. Lots of rock shelves. And so it's the first time we notice there's a little tunnel that leads us out onto a flat, featureless plain. Now, when we're out here, we feel fine, okay? Frozen, inert, numb, emotionless. And it's not a particularly pleasant feeling, but it's way better than the overwhelm we're starting to feel on the cliff face. But of course, it's not as nice as when I was down on my beach. So I come back out onto the rock face and I'm trying to get lower, but of course there's more events being thrown at me. So I keep going higher and higher. Now I'm living out on that featureless plain or on the rock face. And because that featureless plain was so boring, we start to create things that mimic what we had on the beach. So gambling, it's sort of like on the beach, I felt hope and capacity to grow. And gambling gives people a false sense of hope. I will overwork and I'm not getting enough sleep. I'll do fantasy thinking. On the beach, it was creativity, but up here, I fantasize about how my life could be. You know, when I meet Mr. Right, Ms. Right, win the lottery, get a job, lose the weight, get the whatever it is. I might rationalize, overthink things and overuse my logic. I might not eat and drink appropriately. Now I'm reaching for the things that aren't necessarily good for me. I might reach for addictive substances. I might do screen time in all its shapes and forms, from TV through to the computers through to the phone. And we see that all the time. We might go shopping. And I know it's often called, a release or a therapeutic. It's not. It's a coping mechanism that gives us a very short-term sense of accomplishment, but it doesn't last. It's like all of these things out on the featureless plane, it's hollow. It doesn't deliver what we genuinely had. Shopping, busyness, the number of people who use busyness as a coping mechanism to not feel what they're genuinely feeling. Busyness, even down to gym junkies. We're meant to be active and do things, but when we take it to extremes, it can be non-beneficial. Same thing, living in our heads and ruminating and only living up here is not beneficial for us. Totally dissociating from what we're supposed to be doing, and on it goes. As we keep going up that cliff, we get to a point where so far up, it actually can feel exciting, because that featureless plane, those things aren't delivering what they promised on the beach. So we start to do a lot more adrenaline and taking much more risky behaviours as well. And of course, eventually we're hanging on by our fingers and toes. And when we get to this point, often we can't access those coping mechanisms. And this is the overwhelm zone. It's so dangerous here that it feels like the wind could just blow us off. And sometimes we feel so overwhelmed, it feels like I could just let go, it'll be easier. Okay, really dangerous in the overwhelm zone. And that's where our nervous system actually wants us to get back out on that featureless plane. The good news is that neuroscience has given us the key to a doorway off the end of every one of those rock shelves that eventually leads to some stairs that lead us back down to our beach. So that's what I wanted to look at now. What is that? We can get back to here where we're having the lovely time on the beach. And what's happened there? Right, let's go that. Okay. So looking at, that was my analogy, because I find it gives everyone a language to describe what's happening for them. But this is what the neuroscience looks like, how they put it. Okay. So down here's the comfort zone. This is our beach down here where we rest and digest and breed and feed. We relate really well to ourselves and others and our environment. This is the escalating cliff face where we go up through levels of fight and flight, but we're still in our stress zone. And up here's the trauma zone. Once I'm in this overwhelm, once I'm doing these coping mechanisms, I am traumatized. So I'll often say to people, when did you last feel like you were genuinely on your beach? A lot of them go, oh, last week when I did such and such. And you're looking at them and they're frozen in their face and they're actually not genuinely there. They're probably doing a healthy coping mechanism, but most of us aren't spending much of our time down here. So we're going to look at, so that's that overwhelm zone, which is dangerous, okay? So when they looked at those animals in the wild, and we'll go through what the process was where they discovered this. So looking at, say, a herd of zebra out on the plains in Africa, and along comes a lioness who needs to feed her family. So the zebras all start here, living their best zebra life, eating, having babies, doing zebra stuff. But along comes the lioness. So they start to flee and they activate their resources and off they go. They're fleeing. And at some point, she stops chasing them. They do not stop running immediately. They keep going and wearing off the resources they had created until they've worn those off. And then they take them themselves to somewhere safe And every last animal in the wild does this flickery, tremoring thing through their body. Meanwhile, the reason she stopped chasing them was because she caught one. That one had activated its resources as well. And as soon as she caught it, it popped itself up into these coping mechanisms. And the most common one for animals in the wild is the catatonic freeze. Okay. And it's a way our nervous system gets us to dissociate our front brain from what's happening to our body, so that if I die in the next 2 minutes, I won't feel the pain of death. And if you look at any of the YouTube videos of wildlife things, you'll see plenty of examples of animals not feeling themselves being mauled to death. But if that animal happens to escape the lioness, it won't feel pain long enough to get itself to somewhere safe. But it is going to have a shortened lifespan. And we're now knowing that also impacts human beings the same way. So this is a point for reflection. Okay, the points I wanted to ask earlier after that first analogy, the beach cliff. When were you last genuinely down here on your beach? And I know a lot of men in my age group who feel like they've never been there because they were taught boys don't cry. When you're on your cliff face, how high are you normally? Are you this, or up here? And how high have you been on the odd occasion? And when you're on that featureless plain, what are some of your coping mechanisms? And we've all got a lot because they help us to survive. So coming back to this zebra that was caught and dissociated from what it felt, we've all had experiences of that as well. So if you think about a team sport you've played, or even personal sport, but team sports are great for it, where let's say it's hockey and you're running and someone whacks you on the shin and you go, but you keep going and you're not even noticing the pain on your shin. But when you get home later, you go, oh my goodness, that's huge. I can hardly walk on that. Why didn't I feel that pain? Because your nervous system did the same thing, and it wasn't until you got to somewhere safe that you were actually capable of feeling that pain. And I can give you an example that a friend lets me use. And I do warn you, there's some gory bits in this story, okay? So when this man was 18, he bought himself a motorbike, much to his mother's horror and disgust. So she said, right, you are not allowed to ride that bike at night, and you are not allowed to speed. Yeah, mum, no worries. So of course, one night he's late and he's speeding home and he's hit something on the road. And as he's come off the bike, he's snapped both legs. And as he hit the ground, he broke both forearms. And as he's rolling on the ground, he looked up and he could see car headlights zooming down the road towards him. And he knew he was probably going to be run over. So he rolled himself onto his belly, and he said he dragged himself off the road by his elbows, fascinated at his forearms flopping around in his jacket, but he felt no pain. And I asked, when did the pain kick in? He couldn't remember whether it was when the car did stop or when the ambulance arrived or when he got to hospital. But of course, when it did kick in, it was excruciating. So we all go through this to greater and lesser extents. We have it, and it's a gift from our nervous system. But when these neuroscientists turned and looked at us, we also started down here, and along came a stressor. And as soon as the stress event was over, we went, no, I'm fine. We didn't complete the body-based stress process. So when the next event came along, we escalated a bit higher and a bit higher and a bit higher until we were feeling that discomfort inside, and we popped ourselves up into this dissociated state. And of course, we kept coming back out of that state, trying to get back down to our beach, but over time we kept going higher and higher until I would say 98% of us are living either doing our coping mechanisms or overwhelmed. But if we start completing that body-based stress process where we unwind what's held in our reserve tank in our body, we start to come back down. And like all therapy, it's never a straight line. So there are days where you go, wow, this is fantastic. And there are days where you go, this isn't working. And then, but over time, you see this gradual coming back down into this genuine capacity to live here and just do this one. Okay. Does that help, Andrea? Does that make sense?
Oh, that's great. I love the beach analogy. I think it's so well, yeah, it's something that I think is a great way of summarizing the patterns of our lives. So can you tell us a little bit more then about what it is that we need to do to like help our bodies complete the stress process?
Absolutely. So this little process here looks so simple and innocuous. Okay, and if we, okay, so how do we trigger this process? Let's start there for starters. If a tiger jumped into the room with us all at the moment, and I said to you, oh, is that a Bengal tiger or a Sumatran tiger? And you said, oh, should we fight or should we flee? Too late, we're dinner. So our clever front brain gets shut down, and there's a little structure in our hindbrain called the amygdala. Neuroscientists call it the smoke detector of the brain. If you think about a smoke detector, what's it there for? It's there to keep us safe. It's there to detect smoke that could potentially be a fire. How many times in your life have you genuinely been saved from burning to death because your smoke detector went off and it was a genuine fire? I reckon 99% of us have never been saved from a proper fire. How many times has that smoke detector gone off because somebody burnt the toast or there was too much steam or the battery was flat or fill in the blanks? And every time it goes off, it's not just warning us, it's pitched at such a tone, it activates all the resources. And we get up and we go, where is the danger? And should I fight it or should I flee? Because if I need to fight it, I want it in front of me. If I need to flee, I want it behind me. And so our amygdala is just the same. It's there to keep us safe, but it can't tell the difference between genuine danger and perceived danger. So a genuine tiger could leap into the room with us at the moment. Our amygdala would go off and trigger all our resources. We could watch a movie about a tiger leaping into the room. And you think of all the scary movies. They're designed to trigger our amygdala response. And so our amygdala will react that way. Or we could go to Canberra Zoo and sleep on the opposite side of the bulletproof glass to the tigers. Our amygdala will still go off. Generally, in those fun ones that we've chosen, like going on rides at the show and all sorts of slightly risky behaviours, we often complete that body-based stress process accidentally, but not always, because if you think about it, the amygdala is using all your senses all the time to say, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? If it perceives you're not safe, it triggers this stress response. So even if we just think about our 5 primary senses, but then we've got all our subtle senses. So even babies are born with a sense of movement. They do that startle response test, which is really checking it's got a functioning amygdala. But all the other senses we develop as we grow. Sense of balance. How old is a child generally before it can stand on one leg and hop? I've had people say, oh, 6 months, 2 years. No, it's about 5 to 6 years old before a child can genuinely do hopscotch. Okay. So they're learned. Sense of speed. We don't really get a good sense of speed till we start driving. And even then, we have to keep looking at the speedometer to go, am I doing the speed limit? But once you've been driving for several years, it becomes embodied and you can sit on 80 kilometres an hour or 100 or 110. You have an embodied sense of that. So the amygdala is using all of that and saying, am I safe? Now think about how many resources you have as an adult: physical, intellectual, spiritual, and emotional. I know I'd missed one. Now, how many resources does a small child have? A baby, a newborn baby has none. And that's why children are more prone to getting traumatized than adults. And it happens very, very easily for them. So I've heard adults saying, oh, no, this will be fine for the children, like going and sleeping with the tigers at the zoo. Now, if everything's going well in their world, that's true. But let's say mum and dad had an argument in the car on the way to the zoo. That child is now feeling threatened, and that experience could become a traumatic one for them.
Mm.
So this is it. It's not all black and white what causes trauma for children, but we all carry childhood trauma. But if we start down here, so this amygdala perceives danger and activates our resources. The very first two things it does is it takes all of our senses and puts them on high alert, going, where's the danger? Where's the danger? The second thing it does is it tightens our diaphragm, that big flat disc of muscle that runs through here, which is normally soft and flexible. We hardly even know we've got the diaphragm until we have the hiccups. But the moment it perceives danger, that goes rock hard. And it's designed to compress our lungs to roughly a quarter of their size and gives the heart something to really ramp up against. We've already got our mouth open tasting the air, and it says, can you pull in lots of short, little, highly oxygenated breaths? And the heart's going to pump that blood out to our arms and legs, preparing us to fight or flee. Then that goes cascades through a whole bunch of others, including shutting down blood supply to our clever front brain because it's too slow to get us out of danger. But even in those first two, the hypervigilance and the tightening of the diaphragm, they're often involved in panic attacks. Okay, because people go, oh, my heart's going to beat out of my chest, or oh, I can't get a proper breath. Okay. And it's really just that little symptom there. Now, think about the hindbrain with the amygdala evolved millions and millions and millions of years ago. Every living thing has the equivalent of an amygdala to respond to danger. Even single cell amoebas, if you poke them, they withdraw from the stressor. Our clever front brain really only evolved within the last million years. So whenever we get triggered, our amygdala is always looking for danger outside us. But what happens at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm going, oh my goodness, I've got to do that thing today, and oh, I didn't do that thing yesterday, and I should have said this, and I've got to do that. My clever front brain is poking my amygdala when I'm meant to be asleep. So it might be, I've got to do that presentation and I need 6 hours of sleep, and now it's 5 hours. I've got to get 2, and I'm not getting any sleep because I'm now in this negative biofeedback loop where my front brain is poking my hindbrain, and that amygdala says, sure, have lots of stress resources. I'll activate them all for you so you can fight and flee here in your bed. So I've been doing a lot of work in schools in the last few years, and I've realized our clever front brain, which is powerful and has all our executive functioning and our cognition and our capacity to remember cognitive stuff, is actually like an anxious 5 to 6-year-old child. So think about a 5 to 6-year-old child who's not had healthy boundaries given to it to know when it's safe and when it's not, and maybe doesn't even feel seen and heard, and maybe doesn't actually feel loved. So it's feeling anxious when it goes to any new place, and it's the one that'll be coming in hitting, kicking, screaming, smashing, banging, doing all sorts of things, and it's really saying, can you please help me to calm down and feel safe? Guess what? Our clever front brain's the same, because we don't teach it how to come into the present moment where it is genuinely safe. Except in a few situations, which I will come back to. So it's one of the things that we now teach people is, how do I bring my front brain into the present moment so that it stops poking my amygdala? And it's basically any mindfulness techniques that are making us become aware of the present through our senses. So I call it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I know a lot of people do. So, and we teach it to kids this way. So 5 things you can touch or movements you can make, 4 things you can see, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. So if you've got a cuppa, you can easily do that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with your cuppa. But right now, put your hand onto something like a desk or something that's hard near where you are. Could be your computer even. And I want you to notice how it feels. Is it hard or soft? Is it warm or cold? Is it smooth or textured or rough? Okay, so you've got some feeling words. Now put your hand on your cheek. How does your cheek feel? Is it warm or cold? Is it soft or hard? Okay. For men, is it hairy or stubbly on your cheek? Okay. Then for those of you who've got glasses, you might want to touch your glasses or a piece of jewelry or something like that. And just notice, is it hard or soft? Is it smooth? And even if it's hard, it's a different hard to the first hard. And if it's soft, like my necklace is hard and soft at the same time. Okay. Now touch the collar on whatever you're wearing. Okay. How does that collar feel? There's a bit of texture. It's probably softish, but it might have a bit of structure. Okay. They're all feeling words. If you're really finding it difficult to come into the present moment, just notice what happens when you put one hand on your cheek and one hand on that first object you put it on. Now try and hold both of those sensations at once. You actually can't. Your mind's going to go cheek, table, cheek, table, cheek, table, cheek, table. But while it's doing that, it can't think of all those other thoughts that were poking your amygdala. So it's a little confusion technique you can do with yourself or with children when you want them to stop winding themselves up. Okay. And then you do 4 things you could see. I've learnt with men to pick a shape rather than a colour because a lot of men are colourblind. So it might be 4 square things you could see in the room. And usually you can find square things if you look at the ceiling. 3 things you can hear. I often say something outside the environment, something within the environment, and a noise you can make. And then 2 things you can smell. Now, you can smell your clothing, you can smell your own skin, you can smell your breath. If you've got a cup of tea, you can smell that. If you've got an essential oil, you might want to smell that. Yeah, all sorts of things you could smell. Nurses in hospital, we don't even do the back of the arm. Usually it's just the uniform because all they can smell is hand sanitizer. And then 1 thing you can taste. And even if you don't have something you can taste, you could lick the back of your arm, but we can always taste the last thing we ate, particularly if we had a cup of coffee, that lasts for hours. And we can always taste the toothpaste if we've cleaned our teeth more recently. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They say we should do a mindful minute every hour. We can do a mindful minute with a pen. Okay. I wouldn't recommend the taste and the smell of a pen, but we can do a mindful minute with a pen. I reckon a cup is a better way to do it. We've got to link that to things that already exist during our day because otherwise we forget, and we need to practice this when we don't need it so that when we do need it, we've got it there ready to go. Once I've stopped, and you all might notice already that it's a bit less chatter in your head, except for my voice, which is chattering in your head. But you might notice your body has relaxed just a little bit because you're not thinking about all those things that you were thinking about before you came on the call. Now that we've stopped that escalation, that poking of the front brain, hindbrain, now we can flood our body with a feel-good muscle relaxant, the hormone serotonin. Okay, so we produce serotonin all day, every day. So, there we go. So if I spend all day inside, I get this much. If I get outside, I get that much. If I get 6 hours of sleep, 8 hours of sleep. Have Macca's for lunch, have a nutritious lunch. And on it goes. But no matter how much I produce, when I'm stressed, my system is looking for 100 times that. Now, when they discovered this in the 1950s, they were looking at people who were depressed and they found they had 0 levels of serotonin. And they produced synthetic serotonin. The most common side effect when they tried it on the lab animals was death. So they have never prescribed serotonin. What they did invent were SSRIs, antidepressants. selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So it says we don't know how much you produce, but we'll slow that down over a 24-hour period of being reabsorbed. I always say, why don't we just teach people how to create more serotonin? It's not that hard. So right now, I want you all to take the biggest, deepest breath you can and hold it. So Andrew, I'm watching you. Take a great big deep breath in all the way in and hold it. Now point to the part of your torso that feels the tightest. Up here, here, or down lower. Up there. Okay. And breathe. And you probably 90% of you will have felt it somewhere between your diaphragm and right up here into your throat. And that's called a chest breath. And it mimics that second thing that the amygdala, the stress responses do of tightening your diaphragm and compressing your lungs to a quarter of their size. So when I'm chest breathing, and I'm going to do it, you might not pick it up because Zoom shuts it off. But if I do it slowly, you might get it. So when I do a chest breath, it looks and sounds like, okay, quite short. And I look a bit tight through here. And if you could see my tummy, it went in as I breathed in. It's how we were all taught to stand. Stand up straight, shoulders back, tummy in, head up, now breathe. You're forced into doing a chest breath. It turns out the more we chest breathe, the more stressed we become. There's a nerve called the vagus nerve that has lots of connectors into the heart, and the vagus nerve goes from the heart and straight up to the amygdala. It actually goes to other places, but there's a myelinated connection between the amygdala and the heart. For the last 200 years since it was discovered, they always thought the vagus nerve did nothing because it seemed to wander vaguely through the body and not do much. But in the last 20 years, they've discovered, oh gosh, they've just promoted it to the most important nerve in the body because in a developing baby, the vagus nerve is the first nerve to get myelinated, and that's that connection to the amygdala. So it's now the important nerve. So when we chest breathe, we keep having those messages sent up to the amygdala. I'm still stressed, keep sending out stress resources. But now I'm going to do a thing called a belly breath, which some of you will know. And you usually have to scoot your bottom forward on the chair because when you sit up straight, you have to hold a tight diaphragm. But if I lean back on the chair and just let it all go, I soften my diaphragm and soften my belly. Now imagine taking your breath down to the bottom of your belly before you take it into your chest, and it looks like this. Okay, you can see my tummy's gone out, my shoulders and chest don't look as tight, and if you could hear me, which I'm not sure that you can with Zoom, I got 4 times as much air into my lungs because I softened my lungs and allowed them to expand down into my belly cavity, which is why my tummy appears to go out because my lungs are pushing the organs out of the road. Turns out if we do 3 belly breaths in a row, my theory is the heart sends a message up to the amygdala, I'm no longer stressed. As a matter of fact, stop sending out the stress resources and send out the serotonin. So do you want to try it? So take a breath down to the bottom of your belly and hold, 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 and all the way out. And another one down to the bottom of your tummy. And hold, 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 hold. And all the way out. And one more, down to the bottom of your tummy. And hold, 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 hold. And all the way out. Can you feel a sort of settling sensation across your torso? Arms and legs feel a bit heavier, head less chatty. My voice probably just dropped an octave or two. We've all just given ourselves a shot of serotonin. The only side effect you get from doing this way of getting serotonin is you will go to sleep. So imagine if you're in bed, your front brain's been poking your amygdala, you've done the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and now you flood it with serotonin. I will do sometimes up to 9 or 10 belly breaths in a row. I rarely these days get beyond about 6 or 7, and I wake up because I have a little bit of high blood pressure sometimes. And so the other thing that doing belly breathing does is it drops your blood pressure. So if I get into bed and take my blood pressure, and some days it's up into the 140s, I do my 10 belly breaths and I can drop that blood pressure down to 130. I might have to do another sequence and I can get it down to 120 over 60. And I'm quite happy with that, and it stays there. But as I say, these days I fall asleep before the end of the first sequence of 10. But just doing the 3 belly breaths during the day brings your front brain back online, calms this whole neurologic processing that's happening in your breathing and your heart and your vagus nerve. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and belly breathing are a fabulous little intervention to do. Does that help, Andrea?
Oh, Susie, that's fantastic. And it's so simple, so simple and accessible to us all, which is wonderful.
Yep.
Susie, we are getting close to the end of our time. So is there anything else that you really want to leave us with?
Okay, there's 3 things that we need to do to complete the body-based stress process to come down here. Exercise that mimics fighting and fleeing. Those zebras didn't stop. We do. The more stressed you are, the more you got to do exercise that mimics fighting and fleeing. We cut off neurogenic tremor, the flickery thing all the other animals do. So we need to introduce and make sure we're doing enough neurogenic tremor, which we can get through laughter or through the sobby ugly cry. Okay. And I teach an approach called TRE, trauma releasing exercises, where you activate your tremor through your psoas muscle, and it just gradually follows the vagus nerve up and down regulates your nervous system, which is a very easy thing to do. And we need to increase our bliss, not just serotonin, but oxytocin and all the rest. So we need to do more mindfulness or gratitude practices. Okay. And there was some research done in Australia 10 years ago now, and it showed that they did research on Christian nuns and Buddhist priests, because they found that those people were healthier and appeared younger than their contemporaries in general population. And that prayer and meditation triggers huge shots of serotonin and all the other bliss hormones. And so that's one of the reasons we now know it's a very healthy thing to pray and to meditate. So I'm going to stop my share, maybe.
So, Susie, what if people wanted to, I don't know, get in touch with you or learn more about this approach? Where can they go?
Okay, so I will share a little handout with you that you can share with everyone, Andrea, because I've got a course that's starting up at the moment that teaches people all about this and teaches them how to safely activate that neurogenic tremor in their own bodies. It's a 10 hours of lectures like this, exactly like this, that I've recorded. And at the same time, it has lots of handouts and instructions of how to safely do these things that we need. And it also has 10 hours of 1 hour a week Zoom session where people get to ask me all the questions from what they've been reading or studying that week. So you're more than welcome. There's a founders course that we'll be offering in the next few weeks that will be much less price than the full course, than when it goes live later. So feel free, if you want to go on the waiting list, you'll get some free handouts on the waiting list anyway. There's no commitment to subscribe to the course, but you may be interested in the course.
Thank you, Susie. That sounds wonderful. So we'll pass those on to everybody who's on our mailing list, our email list for this session tonight. We don't have a lot of time left, but I guess if anybody wanted to pop a quick question in the chat, Susie might have a chance to have a look at that as we come towards the close of our session. Unfortunately, the 60 minutes has only really scratched the surface for us, but for me, I guess the most rewarding thing is that affirmation of those simple practices, those spiritual practices, things like gratitude and meditation and even the power of laughter
Yes.
And I know you said that quite quickly, but that sobby, ugly crying, to know that that's quite a sensible response, that time when we do get upset, and we do kind of have a little kind of an emotional session where we let it all out, that all of that's so good for us.
Exactly. And when others do the sobby ugly cry, we often feel uncomfortable and cut it off, like particularly with children. They're now saying to trauma-proof kids, sit next to them and say, it's okay to cry.
Mm,
And
mm,
then when you hear them go, you say, now do you need a hug? And then you come in with the logic and
mm,
explain why you wouldn't let them run on the busy road.
mm, mm,
Yeah.
mm, yeah. How wonderful, Susie. Um, we will have to leave it there. So I just will have to say, on behalf of everybody, thank you for affirming this wonderful approach and offering us some powerful metaphors and analogies to help us understand what we experience, but also to give us hope. And that's really what we were hoping, was what we were seeking in this session tonight, in drawing on your experience, your wisdom, uh, just at a time when we do frequently struggle to be hopeful people. So thank you so much, Susie. I'm so glad we found you, and I hope this is the beginning of an ongoing relationship for us.
Thank you, Andrea. I thoroughly enjoyed being here. And as you can tell, I get a bit passionate about it.
Thank you. Over to Angela.
Yes, thank you, Susie. That was amazing. Just another quick reminder of further help if anyone needs it. But I think we've had some great ideas of how to do that ourselves tonight. Thank you, Susie. A couple of upcoming events that we have with WATAC. So our next sacred conversation is, what does it mean to hope and act with creation? And I didn't put the date on there. Maybe Jess, you can help me with that one. I think it's the 2nd of September, hopefully. WATAC conference is coming up November 14th to 16th, Shining Bright, Living Loud and Standing Strong, and that's at Mary MacKillop Place. And there is a post-Zoom survey, if you wouldn't mind completing. It won't take you very long, 5 minutes at the most. And so we'll just move into a closing prayer. Bringing together the insights and amazing knowledge of our presenter this evening, we pray together. In gratitude for the work of Suzy and all those who delve into the liminal and uncomfortable spaces in our lives, we pray for the resources to experience real hope. That the erosion of hope through stress and trauma can be relieved, allowing us to learn how to heal and grow. That we can recognize ourselves as the pulsating beings we are. That we can learn how to truly breathe deeply and receive that shot of serotonin when we have reached our overwhelming zone. Let us find time to exercise, laugh and cry, to increase our moments of gratitude. And we ask this through our creative and healing God of bliss. Amen. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Angela. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in our session this evening. We hope that it has been a helpful evening for you, and that there will be maybe 1, 2, 3 or more practical ideas that you can take with you into your daily life. And we close this session by wishing God's gracious blessing on each of you, and that you may continue to walk with God, experiencing God's compassion and God's desire for fullness of life. Amen. Thank you again, Suzy, and thank you, team, for helping us along with our prayer at the beginning and the end and all the arrangements that helped us to advertise the session tonight. We've got some nice little thank yous coming in from some of the people who were able to attend. We did record the session. I think we might have missed the beginning, but we will make that resource available to people, as well as sharing the flyer and advertising Suzy's course.
Thank you.
We'll do that quite promptly.
And sadly, my machine has frozen. I'm still stuck in pictures where I can't see any of you at the moment. How many people were logged in, can I ask?
Angela, just,
We got up to
sorry.
about 77, I think.
78 at the highest.
78,
Thank
yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. There were others enrolled, and they will look at anything that we send out. And yeah, that's always worthwhile, sharing some nuggets of gold with them to help them with their own growth and spiritual practice.
Absolutely. So thank you for inviting me. I love sharing this stuff. So, and you guys are so organised.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Suzy. And you know that it's because that your surname was a familiar name to me, and that I happen to know some of your cousins who share our roots in the Snowy Mountains area. And it's probably why you love those cold days, was it? The cold days?
Yes, I think so, because we all come from up that way, yes.
Yes, that's right. Okay, all the best, everybody. We're going to sign off now. And please, of course, get in touch with any of the WATAC team if you have any other feedback that you didn't have a chance to raise tonight. God bless you all, and have a peaceful evening.
Thank you.
Lots of deep breaths.
Yes,
Cheerio.
lots of belly breaths.
Mm.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Suzy.
Col, I guess we need to start thinking about the next one, do we?
You're on mute, Cole.
Is it Alice Caroline that we're thinking of inviting for the creation one? Is that the correct person I have? Jess might remember.
That's the
Or
name.
Catherine.
That's the name we've got down.
Yeah. So has anybody else got another suggestion?
Jackie Raymond.
Jackie Ramond, yes. So is it too early to invite them, do you think, if we ask Alice first?
I don't think so. I think go for Alice first, and then we just plug straight on. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jess and I can work out the invitation and the wording, etc. In the next few days, Jess, I'll be communicating with you, and then we can check whether Alice is available.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I didn't press record, but I thought when I signed in, I thought I said, yes, I understand that this is being recorded. I thought that's what
I don't know that actually starts the recording. It's what everybody was getting.
I think it might have been when I switched.
I wasn't a host. I just signed in from my normal thing like everybody else did. And
I think when I made you host, maybe it stopped recording or something. I'm not sure what happened. It was recording and then it wasn't, and I realized too late. And so I'm really sorry.
Well, I didn't realize that it wasn't.
That's okay. That's okay. Look, things.
Right.
I mean, we just kind of have to go with it. I mean, we didn't. The time didn't go quite as we expected, but yeah, I still think it was very worthwhile. So
The only thing I would say is that we could have had an extra half hour. All those people were staying on. They wanted to stay on. I think.
Yeah, I got that too. And maybe we do need to do an hour and a half, because there's such rich topics that people want to engage more, I think. And an hour is not really long enough for such a a rich topic.
Yeah.
When you've got such a huge amount of information to unpack,
Mm.
it's almost like a sort of a presentation, and then it was hard for you, Andrea, to kick off a conversation, I think, when she had to sort of expound all that stuff and put all that out.
Yes, yes.
But I wondered, how do you get rid of people at the end if they're all before they
You can
leave?
remove them,
Oh.
but I worried if that was a bit rude, and they got the message and they left. So
Yeah, no, I did it. I dropped them.
Oh, well done. Yes, I think a couple of them be still here, wouldn't they?
Yeah, just lurking, just going, what are they going to talk about now? Yeah.
And it really depends on the presenter, because in our first one of the year, the hour was plenty time enough.
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
So-
that's true.
Yeah, because we had gone down our list of preferred presenters a bit, hadn't we? So she really wasn't as.
I think that was the topic, though, that with the psychology, I remember going, what? Wow, that's an interesting way of going. That's why I think so many people were so interested, because it's not about synodality. It's not about this, it's not about that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, yeah, this is great. It's about.
It was quite
very
technical
practical.
too.
Yes.
So that technical information does need a lot more time to unpack, I think. Yeah.
But we should start, how can we build things like that into the conference? Or how can, when we get together, when we have physical events, how can we always make sure, I mean, there'll always be meditation and prayer but sort of the breakout or the exercise or the sobbing laughing. How do you get 80 women sobbing laughing? Oh,
Now, hilariously, there is actually a thing called, I'm not trained in it, but I have attended. There's laughter yoga. And it is about, like, I did not know a soul, okay? So just putting that out there. And you walk up to people and, like, they tell you, like, all these sort of different ways you kind of have to laugh. And you literally walk around in circles, do lots of different sort of activities. But one of them is you walk up to people and you go, ha! Then you walk up to the next person, ha! And it is hilarious because it's so off-putting initially. But in the end, you just cannot control yourself. You're just laughing because it's like this forced thing. But if you think about it, all of us are like, oh, that's a bit funny, because it can be a little bit embarrassing, but you just, all of a sudden, everybody's laughing because it sounds funny.
I'm mortified just listening.
Yeah, I don't think I could ever do anything like that.
I'm thinking like of when we had to do exercises warming up in drama, and it's so awkward at the beginning, but you're with people that you know, let alone being in a yoga class with people.
Well, like it's in a park, like they hold it in. I went to Brisbane. It was in a park, outdoors, and you just walking around laughing at each other, and then they might get you to laugh like a certain way, and it was, in the end, it was quite uplifting. But yeah, so there are things out there.
Yeah, we see, I mean, we could have had breakout groups, couldn't we, talking through that.
We could have, but we felt we were short on time, and we were a bit worried about people getting into talking about their own traumas, and that not really being not an ideal opportunity, not an ideal environment for them to do that.
We were going to have journaling, Sue, with the 3 questions, just some quiet time, but I think I texted Andrea at 12 past and said, it's 12 past. And
that's right. It still took me another 5 minutes to be able to get my word in. So yeah.
It was great. It was.
You didn't talk for too long.
No, and congratulations to the person who got it on the top of the Catholic Outlook yesterday as well.
Did it go? Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Did it, I mean, was there a spike in registrations as of yesterday?
It was more, I reckon it was more the ACCCR, but we'll find out, because Jess had the brainwave of using that as one of the questions at the end. How did you hear about it? I've never had one time the Outlook has worked. I have to show you how to do it, Jess. It's very, very simple, but I've just really quite.
Yeah. Well, it'd just be good to know, because last Monday we were at 15 attendees, and by this Monday we're at 150, and you just think, how has that happened? So something shifted.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a huge email list, that one, surely.
Yeah. But I think
is-
to whoever said before, it wasn't about synodality. I think that it was a fresh topic and a real topic.
Yeah.
And honestly, we're in an era where when we watch the news, we end up feeling so bad. So it's like the kind of like our hopes being sucked out of us in so many ways that it was a very more timely than we could have imagined.
Yeah, and the sort of the too long didn't read summary of it is that hold on to religion when the world was going to shit, because religious practices like meditation and gratitude and prayer will get you through it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a refreshing topic for people because, we're sort of saturated with this command to hope, but without enough addressing the reasons why people don't hope.
Yes.
People feel, and that has the effect of sort of pushing people further into hopelessness. It's like, we've got to hope, 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 but how? And that somatic stuff, the breathing and whatnot, gives you a very sort of practical way of achieving that. So it's really important stuff, I think.
Interesting as a journaling exercise, thinking of WATAC as the sort of